Now, as I said, 95% of who we are by the time we're 35 years old is a set of memorized behaviors in which it's subconsciously running behind the scenes of our awareness. Here's a great example. You can't consciously remember a phone number. Well, you'd have to be over 35 for this, but you can't consciously remember a phone number, but you walk over to the receiver and you pick it up and you look at the dial pad and your fingers dial the number. You can't remember your ATM number, but your fingers can remember it. So you practiced it so many times that your body knows better than your brain. Now, 95% of who we are by the time we're 35 years old are those set of memorized subconscious automatic programs.
Oh, that's why you said 35.
Right. So by 35, we pretty much figured it all out neurologically, become hardwired. So now the person wants to think positively, but they've been feeling negatively for the last, 25 years. They want to create a new life and, create a new vision for themselves, but they feel guilty. That's mind and body working in opposition. We have to recondition the body to a new mind. And when the body becomes the mind, then when I said to change is to think greater than the body, what I mean by that is we have to think greater than the memorized emotions that the body has recognized or become familiar with. Well, stress is when the body's knocked out of balance. And when you're being chased by a lion, thousands of years ago, you turned on a primitive nervous system to mobilize all of this energy to prepare you for some threat or event in your external environment. And when you mobilize all that energy, you're really saying, I got to take care of this body, I got to become aware of my environment, and how much time do I have to get there? So what was once highly adaptive, which means if you're being chased by a lion, you better make sure that you have enough energy to either fight or run. But now if you're thinking about firing an employee, and you know that this person has a wife that's sick, and they have 4 children, and you know that they actually need the job more than the other person who's going to stay, and you begin to think about that over and over again, you're turning on the stress response just by thought alone. And what was once highly adaptive now becomes very maladaptive, because no organism in nature can survive under long-term stress.
Long-term stress.
Yeah. Well, what it is that there's nothing wrong with having emotional reactions to things in your life. That's pretty much part of life. It's the repetition of those that keep the body out of balance. Now, your body is your unconscious mind. It does not know the difference between a stressor in your environment that produces a reaction and the thoughts that you think, that produce the same physiological response. To the body, it thinks it's in the same experience over and over again. And so if you keep mobilizing all of this energy for some threat that's real or imagined, there's no energy then for internal repair. There's no energy for growth and repair. And so if 2 cancer cells get together and they want to start a family or community, all of the troops are fighting a war in the external environment. There's no energy for growth and repair in the internal environment. And whether it's heart disease, whether it's immune-mediated conditions, whether it's muscle pain, whether it's digestive disturbances, whether it's memory problems, infertility. It's all created by those hormones of stress, because as the body is living in that emergency mode, there's no real need for long-term building projects. So how many people here actually woke up this morning and consciously created a future? The biggest reason why people don't do it is because you don't really believe it's true.
You don't really believe it's true. You don't really believe it's true. You don't really believe it's true.
Here's my thing. Brian, I'm never going to stop asking greater questions, and I'm never going to stop pushing that envelope. We have mounds of research from our community, thousands and thousands and thousands of brain scans. We have thousands of heart rate monitor and heart rate variability measurements to show that our community, in fact, Bond University just released our research, and we're writing a paper on it, that our student body could actually self-regulate and change their brain waves in a very, very quick amount of time. We understand how to do that, and we understand how to create that kind of coherence. And if you're doing it in a room where there's soft music playing and there's 1,500 people around you and it's safe and you're not distracted by your environment and the music's filling the space and your eyes are closed and you're not going anywhere, you're not eating anything, you're not smelling anything, you're not tasting anything, you're not experiencing and feeling anything. And you have the ability to pay attention and change your brain waves and get beyond your analytical mind and enter your autonomic nervous system. You can begin to produce physiological changes that you thought were only once left to yogis and mystics and masters. And turns out that we can teach people how to do that. So if you do that in the environment where you've practiced it and then you return back to your life after a week-long retreat and you start reacting to the same circumstances in your outer environment, every person, every object, everything, every place has a neurological network in your brain because you've experienced it. That means it's known. And because you've experienced that boss or that coworker or your drive to work or your ex or your cell phone or whatever it is, or where you sleep, where you work, you have an emotion, a feeling associated with it because you've experienced it. So then if you've experienced it, then it's known as well. So you return back to your life and you start responding and reacting to the circumstances in your life. You just went unconscious to the program, or you are back in the subconscious program that you're victimized by your environment. Your environment is controlling the way you feel and think. In other words, you're thinking and feeling equal to your environment. That means how you think and how you feel is your state of being. You just return back to your old self. Don't expect your life to change, because if your personality creates your personal reality, and your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel, you start thinking the same way, acting the same way, and feeling the same way, then you just return back to the same personality and your life will stay the same. So I thought, okay, these people obviously can do it. We have the data to prove it. So now let's take it to the next level. Let's put people in circumstances where that would normally elicit a survival emotion like fear, that would drive a subconscious or automatic program for them to go unconscious and do exactly what they've always done when they feel these emotions, and throw in a program that would be natural and normal. Or you put them in a circumstance that elicits that same response, and in that moment, that is the moment now where they have to self-regulate, and they have to go against thousands of years of programming and fear. They have to realize that their legs are shaking, their heart is racing, that now the game is on. And they have to, in that moment, practice the very formula that we've taught them in a circumstance that is challenging them to be greater than their environment, to be greater than their body and the response of the body, and not rush through it, but to master the moment in time. And when people start to do this and they settle their brain and body down, something amazing happens. All of a sudden now, they go further than they normally thought they could go. And when they return back to their lives, they will be less prone to react to the same circumstances. They'll be more conscious because they were conscious in that process. And if they've just done that at 45 feet in the air and they return back to their life and they see a circumstance relative to what they just did, they're going to see this as a much less of a challenge in their environment, and they're going to catch themselves and not go unconscious.